When the idea of giving a talk first came up, I instantly questioned my validity. You see, I don't use the big words like bioluminescent. I'm not technologically savvy. I'm not any of the current professional world buzzwords. I'm not. I don't think I look the part. I'm overweight. I don't always dress right. I wear Converse. I'm not formally educated, and I'm not an expert on anything except me. And would me be enough? You see, I think that we often get so hung up on stigmas and what things look like that we overlook the essence of things that matter. For instance, if you Google what abuse looks like, you'll currently get roughly 597 million hits, most of which talk about the signs to look for. You can look for ways to get help, how to reach out, how to help others reach out for help based on the signs. But often there are signs that we don't see. If you work with someone who comes to the office and maybe you notice bruises, maybe you notice changes in performance, maybe you notice attitude differences, you start to suspect. When that person announces that they're leaving a relationship based on abuse, they are celebrated as they should be. But then there's the person who comes to work who never shows a sign. Their wounds are internal. They have made it an art form to make their life seem golden. So when they announce that they're leaving a relationship based on abuse, we act like they're lying, and they have to prove themselves worthy of wanting to be safe. You see, I think when we say someone looks abused, by default, we are saying that others don't look abused or don't look abused enough. And when someone doesn't look abused enough, they don't reach out for the help that they need. When I was 13, I lived with an emotionally abusive father. I experienced food insecurities, neglect, and then within a 4-month period, my mom's dad died. A man that I considered to be a grandfather on my dad's side died. My mom gave up on her 2-year battle of cancer and died. And I was raped. Twice. But I didn't look abused. I didn't look like I had developed irrational fears. I didn't look like I had chronic depression. I didn't look like I had anxiety. I didn't look like I had PTSD. So no one reached out to me. And that was okay because I wasn't reaching back. Because reaching back would have meant that I would have either had to admit that I was weak and couldn't handle life, or I would have to somehow validate all of these things that I was feeling and I didn't know what to do with. So instead of learning to process and work through it all, I learned to internalize and I learned to eat. At one point, I internalized to 367 pounds. I internalized to multiple thoughts of suicide. I internalized to feeling like I was nothing. And I questioned how a loving God that could create such a marvelous universe could also waste his time creating me. It wasn't until decades later, I was having a conversation with my husband. He's a combat veteran with PTSD. And he was sharing with me that he felt guilty about needing to go to counseling because of what he had been through. He hadn't been through what I had. He hadn't been abused. He hadn't been through what others had been through. Of course, I told him that was crap. There's not some measurable scale of abuse or trauma that we have to measure up to in order to reach out to get help. But the whole time he was talking, I was self-talking. And I was loathing having been diagnosed with PTSD because I didn't deserve that. He had been through a war zone, not me. That situation that almost cost him his life, he was telling me wasn't enough. And I'm telling myself, I'm not enough to have that same diagnosis. When it comes to what abuse looks like, there's not that measurable scale. Are you with me on the ridiculousness of the philosophy that I was trying to follow? We didn't deserve help because we weren't abused enough. Our trauma wasn't enough. It's like saying I can't stop to get gas because my gauge isn't low enough. But who is gauging my gauge anyway? What abuse looks like is not having to measure a criteria checklist. It's not having to look the part, because I don't have to go through what you have in order to say, I can't do this alone. Because in the end, I am enough. you're enough. That part that hurts is enough. Thank you.